Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. Today, I'll be talking about a record show that I went to here in late March and sharing off the pile of stuff I brought back with me. This is the same show, or at least is at the same venue that I've been to a couple of times in the past year. The folks that put on this show in Western North Carolina do it on about a 4 month rotation. So they hold about 3 record shows a year. The last 2 times I went, I found a lot of really good heavy metal vinyl. I made videos about those. You can check them out on my channel if you missed them in the past. The show this time was kind of different, and let's explain just what I mean and what was different this time around. It was still very well attended. All the tables were pretty much sold. There was a good amount of people walking around, pretty steady traffic throughout, the 3 or so hours that I was there. The big thing that was different this time around, though, was the amount of CDs that were present. This is the first time in years and years where I've seen a noticeable amount of CDs at a record show here. The past several years, it's been 90% vinyl, 10% other stuff, other memorabilia. But this time you saw a lot of dealers with at least, a box of CDs. Nobody really specializing like in new release CDs, nobody specializing in rare or more expensive CDs. Just in general, here's a big plastic tote full of CDs. And in, most cases, it's like all CDs in this one are $3 or all CDs in this one are $5. Just kind of, really simple sorting, low cost kind of stuff. And people were definitely excited to dig through the CDs. There were still plenty of people going through vinyl boxes as well, but a lot of people were just going table to table looking at the CDs and very excited to dig through them when they found those cheaper boxes. So yeah, kind of an interesting, shift there in what people were looking for. I had noticed this at the last record show that more people were asking about CDs, and the dealers had been chatting amongst themselves that there seemed to be a lot of demand for CDs, which they didn't bring many of to the last show. Well, they definitely paid attention, brought more CDs this time, and people were buying them. And while people were buying stuff pretty steadily at this show, I don't feel like there was as much money changing hands as at the past 2 shows. Dealers I talked to still said it was a pretty good day. They were happy with the turnout. Nobody seemed to think that it was a bust of a show or anything. But I didn't see people, sort of, lined up, waiting to, fork over the money the way I had the past 2 times going to this particular record show. So those were kind of the changes in the basic trends, what people were looking for and what people had for sale. Last thing to point out was there was also a wider variety of musical styles present. And the last time I went to this show, there was a huge presence of heavy metal and hard rock. I said in that video review that the show, it was the most I'd ever seen in terms of heavy metal presence at a record show. This one felt more balanced. There was still still a decent amount of metal and hard rock stuff, but there was more country stuff too. There was more oldies kind of stuff, 50s and 60s music. So yeah, and as far as the show goes, that's probably for the best that they've got a better selection of musical styles. That means more people are going to find multiple booths where there's something they want at. Obviously, it's not as good for me because there's a little bit less of what I'm looking for, but I think it's probably better for the health of the record show ecosystem if you've got a lot of different musical styles for people to come and hunt for. All right, now let's get into what I bought. I bought a lot of stuff. I'll go through these pretty fast so this video doesn't take forever. As you'll see, spoiler alert, there's no big ultra rarity at the end. There's no really high dollar stuff whatsoever. Most of what I bought was relatively cheap kind of stuff, and the conditions, decent but used. But then again, the price was right for it. So let's start with the stack of CDs. There's a pretty big stack of CDs. But again, in most of the tables, I was finding them for like, $3 a piece, $4 a piece. It's like, $5 each, buy 4, get 1 free kind of things. So stocked up where I saw some interesting metal stuff. First up, we have Sabotage's Poets and Madmen. This was the last studio album they've done to date. Not a particularly great one. There's a couple of songs on here I like, but Sabotage was kind of, redoing the whole rock opera thing a little too much at this point, and it felt like it kind of worn out its welcome. Still, I haven't heard it in ages. It was like, again, I think this was a free one I got because I bought so much stuff at the dealer's table. So yeah, I will throw it in as my free selection. Also got Midwinter Dead back on CD. Hadn't hadn't owned this in a long time. It's still a relatively good concept album. So yeah, for a few bucks, we'll put that back on the shelf. Let's see, picked up a reissue of Badlands, J.K. Lee's band, of course. Loved this album back in high school. Used to jam with it a ton. Haven't heard it in ages at this point. Last time or two I played it, I remember thinking that it hadn't aged particularly well, but maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it. So yeah, was happy to pick up a used reissue copy of Badlands. Let's see. Next up, we've got a Rise Against album. Says revolutions per minute. And it says RPM 10. It may have been like a 10th anniversary reissue because it's got like a demo version of the album on it also. Yeah, this is kind of, if you're not familiar with them, more of a like pop punk kind of band, maybe a little akin to something like Green Day. I've heard a few of their albums. They're kind of catchy, kind of fun, just simple, energetic stuff. Let's see. Got a copy of Rush's Fly By Night. Never been a huge Rush fan. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. There's just something about them I don't quite get or get into. This is one, though, I always did kind of like. There's, a few songs on here that I like. The pattern I found with Rush is that I seem to like their earlier stuff, that as they got more complicated, I got less interested. I don't have the brain for the really ultra proggy stuff or something, because I don't mind the first album and don't mind Fly By Night. Never owned a hard copy of it, so now I do. Next up, can't get through a video without mentioning Halloween. So yeah, I didn't have this. It's the best, the rest, and the rare. It's kind of a compilation of stuff from Noise Records. It's got a few bonus tracks on it that were like B-sides on some of their 12-inch things. So it's kind of nice to have for that, if nothing else. I think I had it ages ago, but my copy skipped or was scratched up really badly. Something was wrong with my copy. And so I'd gotten rid of it and never got a new copy until now. Next up, we've got a Cradle of Filth, Cruelty and the Beast. This is the last Cradle album I remember liking when it came out. After this, I kind of quickly started to lose interest with the band. This one's a 2 CD version. Cover picture, I think, is slightly different, as I recall. Again, not something I would ever go out and hunt down or special order. But, when it's $3 or $4 at a record show, sure, I'll put that on the shelf. I do remember that one being pretty decent. I was happy to find this. Motorhead live 2 CD set, Everything Louder Than Everyone Else. I think this one came out around 1999. Really good track listing on it, really good sound. I've heard it before, I've never owned it. I've looked at ordering this a couple times because it is a really good live Motorhead 2 CD set. But yeah, as always, the $16.99 and $7 for shipping equals no, not interested, no thanks. But $4, absolutely. So cool Motorhead live album. And if one double live Motorhead CD set wasn't enough, well, let's get another one that's a 2 CD set. This one's called Better Motorhead Than Dead live at Hammersmith. This one came out in 2007. This one I'm not familiar with. The track list on this one looks a bit generic by Motorhead standards. It's most of the stuff you see on a lot of live Motorhead outings. Which is one reason I don't listen to a ton of live Motorhead stuff, and one reason I like this one. This one's got, a little bit of different material on it, some tracks you don't see as much. But again, for a few dollars, I'll take a chance on it. Up next, we have Electric Wizard, Black Masses. This is a little bit of a flyer for me. I remember checking out Electric Wizard like in the late 2000s, very early 2000 noughts maybe. And on first impression, I kind of liked some of their stuff, but it wore out its welcome real fast. I got tired of it after a few plays. Never have heard this particular one. I can't even tell you like which ones I heard, which ones I didn't hear, but I checked. This is one I have never heard. So for a few dollars, I'll revisit Electric Wizard and see how this one sounds like. Don't know. Found this. I'd never seen this before. It's a Candlemass EP from just a few years ago. I think it was 2016. It's called Death Thy Lover. Candlemass does some, small EPs from time to time. I don't recognize the song titles on this one at all. Don't really know anything about it. But again, it was like, $4 or $5. So it got added to the stack. I'm about halfway through the stack of CDs, if you're wondering. I think there's 18 of these total. This was a new sealed copy of Motorhead's We Are Motorhead album from 2000. I remember liking this one when we did the Motorhead rankings with Chris Maycock a while back on in heavy metallurgy. This was one that just kind of stuck in the back of my mind. I was like, that was actually pretty good. I should pick that up sometime. And well, now I have. It's always kind of weird buying, new sealed CDs, 24 years after the fact. It still had the white sticker thing across the top and everything. So it's like, okay, little guy, you've waited 24 years to get your chance to be spun, and soon you shall. I got Accept, the Rise of Chaos. I'm very unfamiliar with later Accept material. I've only gotten one or two of those albums, and so this is one I haven't had. So add it to the stack, and we'll see how that one turns out. Next up, we've got The Cult, Choice of Weapons. This is a 2 CD set that's in one of those kind of hardback digibook things, which kind of neat. It's one of the only Cult albums I've never heard. So it's like, yeah, sure. Add it to the stack for $4. We keep going. I think now there's only one Cult album I haven't got around to hearing. All right, the next few CDs will have something in common. Let's see. We've got a 2 CD set of Sodom's Agent Orange on a digi thing, so later pressing, but kind of cool. The bonus CD looks like it's got mostly live tracks on it. It's only about a handful, maybe 6 or so on disc 2. Then we've got Sodom. I always forget the name of this album. Better Off Dead. Yeah. I also always forget this is the one that comes after Agent Orange. In my mind, this album comes out in the early 2000s, which is a decade later than it really came out. Don't know why I always have it out of sequence, but I just do. Then we've got M16, the 2001 album. And I think this is the one I kind of take this and dang on it, what's its name? Better Off Dead. I think I kind of get these switched in their discography, thinking that this should come after Agent Orange and this should come later, but that's not the way it plays out. And the last CD on the stack, a Sodom album I've never seen before called Epitome of Torture. I think this was a later one, like 2013-ish maybe. So yeah, 4 different Sodom discs. The guy had a couple of others, but I already had those. So that was all I picked up. Never see Sodom stuff in the wild. I have very, very little of their discography simply because I never come across it. Now, I've heard most of these. I've heard all the Sodom stuff up through at least Better Off Dead, maybe one album after that. After Persecution Mania, a lot of the 90s albums, I remember them being good, but kind of quote unquote typical thrash. It seems like they kind of lost their, rough and raw sound and started sounding a little more standard issue thrash. But I haven't revisited any of those albums in a minimum probably 6 or 7 years. So I'll be interested to see what my take is on them these days. So yeah, 18 CDs. Now we move to the vinyl. Yes, I bought a lot of stuff. Again, it really didn't add up to a whole lot. At $4 a piece with freebies thrown in, it takes a while for the CDs to add up. Let's see. I got a copy of the Helen EP, which somehow I just never had got around to buying, but this person had a nice original press of it. This is Anne Boleyn's band, of course. The EP is pretty good. It's not a hard one to find, even though it's from '83. You still see this pretty regularly, and it's never been very expensive. So, again, there wasn't as much metal vinyl this time, and no big rare item that was going to suck up a lot of my money. So I was kind of happy to pick up a few smaller scale things like the Hellion EP. Next up, we've got a Kirith Ungle bootleg live called Battle with Sheila. This one's recorded live at the Roxy Club, Los Angeles in 1983. And I had this show on MP3s that somebody sent me probably as a CDR years and years ago. The MP3s, I don't remember how the sound quality was on those, but I'd never seen a physical copy of that one. Now I have. It says Kirith Ungle and I don't own it, so there's a pretty good chance it's going to come home with me. Next up, I got a, whoops, that's not right. This one. I got a copy of Witch Killers, Day of the Saxons EP. This is one of the early ones on Metal Blade. I did already have a copy of this. This one looks like it's in much better condition than mine. Mine's not beat up, but yeah, it shows a decent amount of age wear, especially on the cover. Whereas this cover, most of the cover is still in shrink wrap. So this was basically sort of a upgrade in terms of condition. And it means I've got an extra copy of Witch Killer. Assuming this one plays okay, I'll put the other copy in the trade box or use it for VCOT or something like that sometime. Up next, we've got a copy of Nasty Savage, Abstract Reality, the EP. I always forget this one's an EP. For some reason, I always think it's a full length, but it's not. This one wasn't very much. The cover definitely has some wear to it. The vinyl looks pretty clean. But yeah, the guy's like, yeah, it's not going to charge anything like full price because it's got the saw mark, it's got noticeable ring wear. But the price was right for sort of a playable copy. I haven't played any Nasty Savage in ages. They've never been one of my favorite bands, but I also feel like I haven't given them a fair chance in a long time. So yeah, this will be the time to do so. Let's see, we've got about 3 more on the vinyl stack. There's 8 vinyls altogether. Got now this is a reissue. It's not an original, but a reissue of Razer's Malicious Intent. I've heard this is not the best of the older Razer albums. It's the only one I think it's the only one I've never heard. Now that I've said that, there's probably another one that slipped past me somewhere. But yeah, I've never heard this one. So I was like, sure, not a lot of vinyl I'm picking up today. I got this thrown in with several of these others and, got a good price since I was buying a pile of stuff. So I'll check this one out and see how it is. I'm not expecting it to be Evil Invaders Part 2, but you never know. Last 2. Got a compilation called From the Megavault. This is one on Megaforce Records. This does not have the poster with it. Copies originally came with a poster. Not a compilation I was familiar with, but it's got a pretty good lineup of stuff. It, for example, has Medieval Steel's Battle Beyond the Stars. Right away, there's a pretty good deep cut. Overkill's Sonic Reducer, great cover song. Exciters on here, TT Quick, Raven. Some of the bands on side 2, well, some of these I know, some of these I don't. There's one called Imperious Rex. Never heard of that band. There's Blessed Death, SOD, Anthrax, and for the band that's most out of place, Blue Cheer with Boney Maroney from the Beast is Back studio session. Okay, don't know anything about that. My Blue Cheer, not exactly deep in the cult there. But yeah, some of these others, let's see. The Medieval Steel says it's from a demo session. The TT Quick is from a studio session. The Raven track is live from At the Inferno tour. So yeah, it seems like there's at least, maybe a few different editions, might be some alternate versions of tracks on here. Again, it wasn't very much. I bought it with a pile of other stuff. The guy cut me a deal. So, all right. Sometimes you find some cool oddball things on these old compilations. And then the last one I got was another obscure compilation. This one's called California's Best Metal, with a bright pink cover. That's a color choice somebody made. Who made it? New Renaissance Records made it. This is a comp on New Renaissance. And in theory, it's mostly California bands. Let's see who we've got on this one. Again, some of these I know, some of these I don't. Hey, there's Helen yet again. It was a Helen kind of day. Divine Right is a name I know. The Palace of Oblivion? Okay, I don't know that one. Never heard of that. You've got Siren, but spelled Syren, so points for spelling it wrong. You've got Night Stalker 69, Ruby Slippers. I'm not kidding. There's a band called Ruby Slippers. Yep. VVSI. Don't know what that stands for. Assassin. Now, that is a very good California band. All Your Love is a solid track by them, if I remember right. Nightmare 2. I've never figured this band out, but yeah, it's always Nightmare spelled with a K and then Roman numeral 2 at the end. Not sure what's with the odd name, but I've seen other stuff by them. Savage Grace is featured on here. The picture, at least, is the looks like Mike Smith era. So from Betrayer, yeah, that's Master of Disguise era Savage Grace. And the last one is a band called No Sugar. There's some weird band names on this one. No Sugar. I don't know what to say about that, other than I've never heard of them before. Yeah, so again, relatively cheap. It's got, it was a hole punch cover and all that. So not asking a lot. Got it for less since I was buying several things. Yeah, sure. Take a chance on it and find out what some of these bands sound like. Don't know. I guess you could say the compilation with Ruby Slippers. I went ahead, tapped it 3 times, and I brought it right on home. Kind of forcing the Wizard of Oz joke there a little bit. It sounded funnier in my head. But so yeah, that's it. The final score is 18 CDs and 8 pieces of vinyl for 26 more things to listen to. That's going to take a while, which means I should wrap this video up and start playing some things. So let's talk metal in the comments down below. Anything I pick up here, strike your fancy, things that I definitely should play first. Did I stumble into some duds unknowingly? And it says like, oh, you bought that Candlemass EP. Ew, condolences. Leave a comment. Let me know what I'm in for. Sometimes it's good to know. Go in with a little bit of knowledge that it may not be the best of the best. Have you been to any record shows lately and noticed the same trends that I did, with CDs making more of a comeback and people really wanting to dig through some cheap discs rather than looking at more expensive vinyl? Yeah, leave a comment below. Let folks know what to expect if they head out to a record show sometime in the near future themselves. I don't plan to go record shopping again anytime soon. I don't think there's going to be any more collection updatey kind of stuff for quite a while. Fingers crossed. Now that I've said that, something good will turn up. But we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. All right, that will do it for this video. Until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head. Maybe not to that Ruby Slippers band, though. I'm going to be surprised if that's a headbanger. We'll find out.